Welcome back to the Home Slice, everyone. I figured it's probably about time that I sifted through my comments and selected what are some of the most common questions that I'm encountering that people have, and see if I can address some of those questions. Thank you so much for the feedback, especially those of you who have tested out this edge and put up results. I'm so stoked to see the amount of people coming back and saying, hey, I had this performance increase, it did this, it performed this task. I think it's really cool. So to get into the FAQ and give you some responses, something that I'm seeing pop up a lot is the question, can you use a dual grit edge on kitchen knives? And the short answer is yes. I use a dual grit edge on most of my kitchen knives. It will do tasks like piercing through the skin of a tomato while still being smooth enough to do regular chopping tasks. Fun fact is that I use a really aggressive dual grit edge on one of our chef knives and use it as a bread knife. I actually use it to slice bread. Maybe I'll put up a video of that because after getting a serrated knife and comparing the two, my wife actually was the one who was like, throw that serrated bread knife in the garbage, like this chef knife with a dual grit edge works better. So that's pretty fun. One thing I would say with kitchen knives is that you can adjust the coarse side of the edge. Now with dual grit edge, to really get it dialed in to do exactly the kinds of tasks that you would like it to, this is what I recommend. I recommend take the fine side as fine as you can get it. As far as the coarse side goes, give it your best guess of how aggressive it needs to be to do the task that you're aiming for well. Try it out and observe the results. Now, if you notice in your results that you need more edge life, longer edge retention out of it, I would recommend dropping to a coarser grit on the coarse side. So drop it from, if you started at 300, try dropping it to 200. If you started at 400, try dropping it to 250. And see if you can get a little bit of edge life, extra edge life out of it. If you find that you desire greater smoothness in the task, the slicing efficiency and smoothness, you could go to a finer grit on the coarse side. So maybe if you started out at 400, bump it up and try 600 or 800 to see if you can achieve that level of smoothness you're looking for. And really evolve it until it does exactly what you want it to do for the task that you want it to do. Another question that I get frequently is, what steels have you tried this on? Personally, I've tried this for the last 2 years on all kinds of steels. It seems to work well on carbon steels, on stainless steels. It seems to increase the performance of budget steels, and it even seems to give modern powder steels a little bit of extra length of edge retention, as we saw particularly in Pete's testing. But I noticed large gains with steels across the board in wear resistance and edge toughness and aggressive cutting character particularly. I will say that some of the biggest surprises that I've had, or the biggest increases in edge performance, has been steels that have really large carbides. Your steels like D2, 154cm, where the carbides are up in that like up to 40 microns large. It seems like the shape along the edge helps it to support carbide structures in a really effective way. I don't know exactly why that is. Hopefully more guys will get on the bandwagon with looking at this thing under a microscope and we'll get some answers to that. I'd love to know. I think it'd be super cool. Another question that I frequently get is, what's the best angle, or do you have any angle recommendations? I've done limited testing with angle. I haven't really tried the full gamut of angles, but as far as I can tell, it seems like the more acute you go with your angle, you'll see large increases in aggressiveness, and it still seems to hold an edge admirably well. I would imagine that if you're looking for an EDC or slicer edge, somewhere around 15 degrees is going to yield a really satisfying edge. If you're looking for something for work that you're really going to beat the edge up, I would recommend going with something more like 17 to 20 degrees per side, just so you get that little bit of extra edge durability and make sure that you're not running into chipping problems. That's off the top of my head, but I would say it also depends on the toughness of the steel that we're talking about, the carbide volume, all of those things play into it. So play around with the steels that you have, and maybe start out with my suggestions and find your own jam when it comes to the edge angle. A really interesting comment that I got from a friend of mine named Sam is that he's working on a preset system. I can't remember if it's a KME or something else like that. And he said, hey, I'm really having trouble getting the 250 grit stone to stop putting burr over to the other side. And I'll offer a quick tip for you there. You guys that are using a preset system, you've got a knife in a clamp, and then you've got a small stone. This is actually an Arkansas stone, little Craftsman Arkansas stone from decades ago that my grandpa gave me. So you've got your knife in a clamp, and then you've got some system for holding the angle consistent. And ordinarily, as you're profiling the edge, you would probably wear away at one little section of the edge at a time. But I would recommend, as you get to your strokes where the other side is getting finer, and you need to take the burr off of this side, but you don't want to raise a big burr on this side, make sure that you incorporate some lateral movement across the edge, okay? As much as you can. Because here's the deal, if you move this stone across just this part, then there are hundreds of abrasive particles that are all getting raked across the same millimeter of edge. But if you rake across this way, not only is it's a nice motion for stripping off burr, but also each portion of the edge just gets a couple of abrasive particles to just sort of take that off. So if you're having trouble getting your coarse stones to stop raising a burr when you don't want them to, give it a try with a bit more lateral side-to-side motion and see if that helps. Also, as gentle as you can get the touch, it's better to do more strokes gentle than it is to do one stroke a little harder. And so I'd recommend, it's better if you have that burr on this side to try it and get it halfway off than to really grind at it and push it all the way over to the other side. Hopefully that helps, guys. I hope that yields some good results for you guys in your testing. Another question that I often have is, does this method work with budget steel? And the answer is a resounding yes. In fact, I just saw a video that was posted up by a guy named Pavel, who's in the Slovenian knife community, and he got a comment from a guy who's in the Russian knife community, which is just like cool upon cool that this is spreading like that. And he said that this method has actually been used back in the day in Russia. They called it the gypsy edge, and they would use it in applications where the tempering of the steel wouldn't take a fine edge to get this a steel that was not tempered well or that had materials in it that weren't of the greatest quality to still hold an edge. And I thought that that was super awesome. I guess on that note, you'll be pleased to find out, I'm sure, that Pete still has one of my knives and a surgeon's scalpel that I sent him that he's gonna perform an edge test with. The knife that he has yet to be tested is in 12C27 mod, Sandvik 12C27 mod steel. It's an Opinel kitchen blade that I actually kind of cut up and turned into a folding knife. Why would I do that, you might ask? And I'll give you a little short explainer of that. So this knife that I sent Pete, I actually sort of went on this journey to try to figure out what is a way that I could really push the limits of how thin you can go with a grind in a folding knife. I noticed that the blade shape that I wanted, the blade thickness, the blade profile that I wanted was being produced, but nobody's making it in a pocket knife. What I really wanted was a 3.5-inch long, like spear point or clip point or drop point blade that's about 1 millimeter thick and fully flat ground. I was thinking that would be awesome to have in your pocket. So as I was thinking about this over time, I realized that people have been making kitchen paring knives in that design for a long time, and so all I had to do was turn a fixed blade knife into a folding knife, and I thought to myself, how hard could that really be? So what I did is I bought an Opinel paring knife, much like this. This is an Opinel carbon steel paring knife that I customized the wood handle for. And the knife that Pete has started out very similar to this, but this is a carbon steel version that my wife uses for gardening and some kitchen work. And the one that I sent to Pete is obviously the stainless version. So I got some scrap stainless steel for liners. I went to an industrial plastics supplier and bought some really thin linen micarta. And I took some nails to use as blade pins or rivets, and I set out to build a folding knife. And what I ended up with, I'll throw a picture of it up here, but this is the knife that I sent to Pete. It's very thin, very slicey. And the way that I use it presently is I'll actually put it into my pocket and carry 2 knives. This knife that Pete has is so small that it feels like a pin in your pocket. And so I'll throw it in there and just forget that it's there. And I'll also have my Spyderco or another work knife for rougher tasks. And the benefit of this is that during the day at work, if I need to get something out quick or I need to beat something up, I'll use my Spyderco or something that has a really tough steel in the blade. If I come up to an apple or like a piece of fruit or vegetable that needs to be peeled or chopped or skinned, I'll pull this Opinel out of my pocket and I'll just have the most dreamy, slicey experience. It just slices like heaven. The grind is so thin. I mean, you've used these as similar things as kitchen knives, I'm sure. And you can imagine having an edge with that profile or a blade with that profile with you at all times would be really fun. On a side note, my dream from here, and if you work with a knife manufacturing company, would you shoot me a comment in the comments below? Because I really think that if we made a knife like this in a steel like 3V or Crewware that has a little bit more wear resistance and still that super high toughness, people would really, really enjoy carrying a micro hyper slicer in their pocket. That's my opinion. It's revolutionized the way I carry my knives. It's really, really, really fun. But if you work with a knife company, look me up, bro. Let's design a knife together. I'm not kidding. For now, that's the most frequently asked questions and a little bit of extra bonus material about what's coming up on Pete's channel. And I hope you have a great day. Peace out from the Home Slice.